Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended, but this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind, and reaching forth unto those which are before. I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. I'd like to talk for a few minutes from the subject, I think I want to change my mind. Changing our minds. That's what we seem to do a lot of today. People in line at the restaurants, people in line, in the aisles of the grocery store. People constantly change their mind. I think I want this thing. No, I want that. The choices afforded to us today now are endless, it seems, in every area of our lives. Yes, how many cars can you pick from? How many homes can you pick from that are in your price range? How many different types of sodas or all those things? We have so many choices. The problem sometimes is that we do have so many choices that we often choose the wrong thing. Many of us have choices in relationships. Many of us have choices of job assignments, choices of schools, choices of whether or not to have children, choices whether or not to get married, choices whether or not to move to this city or that city, that we look back now at this point in our life and we look at some of those choices and look at the repercussions of those choices. And sometimes we said, if I'd have known then what I know now, I'd have gone back to that time and changed my mind. Well, that is the mindset that I think that all of us have at some point in our life, but many of us, I'm quite sure, as we look at the choices of our life, we allow the bad choices, the wrong choices, the things that we've done wrong continually over and over again to negatively affect our present and our future. Just because you did something one way 5 years ago, it does not mean you should carry the weight of that for the rest of your life. A choice, even a bad choice, can be a good choice if you learn something from it. That's the way that the Romans looked at things, even in the Roman tragedies, the Greek tragedies. In the Greek tragedy, it was still a good thing if the hero were to learn something from his mistakes. The interesting thing now, it seems like I meet people continually that in the present beat themselves up over something that happened in the past. Yeah, you might have been wrong, but you don't have to be wrong now. Paul is speaking in this 3rd chapter of Philippians, and he makes some pretty bold statements. He starts out the chapter talking about be aware of the people that you hang with. Be aware of the people that you allow to be in your inner circle, because some of them, he talks about them as dogs, and how some of them might seem like good dogs today, but might bite you on tomorrow. He also talks about who he was, what he came from, being, a circumcised Jew, and all that that meant. Being zealous in what he did. But something in Paul changed. We all know the story of the Damascus Road, how God visited him on the Damascus Road. The thing that many of us should take from Paul is how he did not allow what happened before his life change to negatively affect his life after the change. I believe every one of us should take the time every now and then to take a critical look at who we are, to take a critical look at what we've done, to take a critical look at who we've become. And if we find out that there are some things in our life that don't just quite add up, that don't meet our expectation, we might find that we might need to go back and change our mind about how some things in our life should be done. To change our mind about taking a particular job is not a bad thing. For many of us, to change our mind is a good thing. If I've made a bad choice on yesterday and then today I'm faced with the same decision, if I know that I made the bad decision yesterday, today I can take that knowledge and make a better decision. Sometimes we just need to change our mind. But Paul said something here in verse 13 that I think is very relevant for us. Brethren, I count not myself to have apprehended. In other words, I'm not there yet. I have not attained the status that I am shooting for. But this one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth into those things which are before. What Paul simply says to us as the reader in this text, the one thing that I do is that the stuff that I did before that I no longer agree with, I simply set it aside. I take the lesson, I learn from the lesson, but then I move on. And I don't allow the weight of what I did to mess up who I become. Many of us look at life and we say, if I hadn't hooked up with that person, if I hadn't left that job, if I hadn't done this, or if I had done that, or if I had gone here, why spend the time saying if, when we can simply say, in the now, and I can do better. As Christians, all of us are already given the most perfect opportunity each day of our life to be better people. Isn't it wonderful to know that the person you were is not the person you'll ever be again? And the reality of it is, if God saved you from where you were and took you out of the mess that you were in and put you in a place where that stuff, that's the sin, the evil, the bad stuff that you were a part of, can no longer affect who you become eternally. Sometimes maybe we just need to release ourselves.